Oh my gosh, this is episode 11. Welcome to the LA Real Estate Podcast. It's our podcast on buying and selling real estate in Los Angeles. Today, we'll be talking all about the main players in the transaction, tenancy and common transactions, and the 10 best upgrades to the exterior of your house.
Number 11, here we go. Hey, Tanner.
And what's that, Sarah?
I was just in northern Canada in the Yukon.
You were. Tell people don't understand Watson Lake. People don't understand how far away you were from anything when you lived in the Yukon.
Okay. I'm going to walk you how to get there. Ready?
Yeah.
You take a plane to Vancouver, and then you wait in the airport, and then you take another plane from Vancouver to Whitehorse, and then you wait for your mother to pick you up from the airport and drive 6 hours to Watson Lake. Normally, it only takes 4.5, but because of construction, it took 6 hours. So just to get an idea of what that feels like, just lock yourself in a closet with a 5 and a 7-year-old for an entire day.
Oh, my God.
But you know what? There's iPads.
Yeah.
We usually have screen rules with the kids. Mm-hmm. But on traveling, days,
let them go wild.
They can have as much screen time as they want. And actually, the kids were amazing. But we went to northern Canada, the Yukon. We went fishing. We did so many things. It was a wonderful, wonderful break.
All the photos of the boys look like they were having a blast.
They had so much fun. It was really amazing. I got to see a lot of friends and family. And now I'm back. I'm ready to work.
Back in action. Back in podcast business.
Yeah.
All right, talking about the main players in escrow, your mortgage broker, a bunch of other people.
Okay, so this is funny because it gets a little confusing when people have an offer accepted, often because there's a lot of people working, and there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. Often some of them have the same names. So I was just in a transaction with 2 Tracys.
Really?
I've been in so it happens frequently. And it's confusing for the buyer because they're interacting with one person and all of a sudden it's someone else. And then, wait, why is this person copied on the email?
Oh, yeah. No, that I very specifically remember when my loan process was going down, you were my initial point of contact. And then from you, there were 3 points of contact. And then one of those people had two further people that I had to deal with. And so all of a sudden, the number of people you have to interact with we're used to I paid $5 for this and now I'm done. But the process and the number of people that you have to deal with to buy a house it's a little intimidating.
It's intimidating and it's confusing. So I thought we'd just kind of go through who these main players are and what they do. So number one, obviously you have your realtor. You have your realtor as the buyer's agent. The seller also has their own realtor. And these are the 2 people you're probably going to be interacting with the most. As a buyer, you're never supposed to communicate with the seller or the seller's agent without your agent also being involved. And the reason we do this is for your protection. So it's basically pretend you're getting a divorce. Mm-hmm. One side has one lawyer, the other side has another lawyer. It's kind of the same thing. The listing agent's agent is there to protect the seller, and the buyer's agent is there to protect the buyer. So often, a buyer will reach out to the listing agent. It's not really supposed to happen that way. You're supposed to reach out to your agent. So, for example, you have a question for the seller. Ask your agent. So that's important just to kind of understand. The mortgage broker. So you're going to get your pre-approval through a mortgage broker. Now, that mortgage broker is going to be the first person you interact with as far as your finance. But that does not mean that they're the one processing your loan.
Right.
So you're going to be in touch with your mortgage broker. They're the person that's going to give you the pre-approval letter. Often they'll have an assistant copied. So those are the first 2 people. Once you're in escrow and you start the process, your loan will probably go to a different department and you'll get someone that is going to start asking for your paperwork, and that will be a different person. So they're tied to the lender, but not necessarily the same person as your mortgage broker. And where this gets even more complicated is if your mortgage broker is actually brokering out your loan, and that's a whole different department. So the loan can involve many people.
Yeah, it's a very fast descent into madness
when
you are hoping for something to be. It's already intimidating. Listen, if you haven't done this yet, it's already intimidating enough. And let me just tell you, when you open this door, you will be immediately faced with 8 people and none of it is simple. None of it is easy.
Right.
It's very straightforward.
Right.
But there's just so much to deal with.
Well, and it gets frustrating too, because you might have 4 people that are all working for your lender, and they might all ask you for the same document. So you've given it to one person, but maybe the other person hasn't received it. This gets really bad I find mostly with big commercial banks, because there's so many people. And, you know, the processor will ask for one document. Well, I already sent that to my mortgage broker and I don't understand. And, oh, well, they're on the East Coast and, oh, they're already gone on vacation. And it just becomes really frustrating. One of the many reasons I love it when people want to work with a local direct lender, because it's a little less people kind of cooks in the kitchen. So again, the person that gives you your pre-approval letter and tells you how you're going to structure your offer and quotes you on your interest rates is not necessarily the same person you're going to be sending your paperwork and documents to later. So your lender, and what I always say is, hey, mortgage broker, can you please just send me as a buyer, hey, can you please just send me a list of the people that are going to be working on my file and what they do? And I'll just save it so I can reference it back to it later and kind of understand who's who, because it does get confusing. And then as realtors, we also have, most of us, especially busy realtors, we have what's called a TC, which is a transaction coordinator. And this is somebody that chases signatures for us. So most realtors do their own paperwork. We do up, all these documents during escrow, and then we just copy our transaction coordinator. They drag it into DocuSign. They drag the signatures. They send it to our client. So it's because when we're in our car all the time, it's a really hard thing to do.
Well, there's so much paperwork, and there are so many signatures that it's not. It doesn't make sense sometimes for a busy realtor to handle all of that themselves. They just don't have the time, and so that's where your TC.
And it's one more set of eyes. TCs tend to be very extremely detail oriented, so they will go over every document and make sure that nobody's missed a date, for example, or missed a signature or an initial, or making sure that everybody gets a copy, because there's so many documents go back and forth. So you might have, say, the original offer. Well, it goes to the buyer because we're going to do a counter, and then that counter gets countered, and then it gets countered back, and we finally have the original. So there's a lot of the same document going back and forth. And one document will have one signature, but then it gets sent to the sellers and they sign that. So it's a lot of different versions of the same contract.
Well, and it'll look the exact same, but maybe one number will be different.
Exactly. So it's important. It's a good thing, actually. TCs are wonderful, wonderful people. I can never do their job because that's all they do all day long is look at contracts and documents. But if you have an agent and they're copying their TC, or they say, hey, I'm copying my TC, that's what it is. Transaction coordinator. Totally normal. One more person just overseeing the documents. And if you have questions, you can ask the TC or you can ask your realtor on the documents. Another person that you're going to be introduced to is your escrow officer. And again, escrow officers that are good and busy generally have assistants. So you might be working with one escrow officer, but all of a sudden you're like, why are these two people from the same escrow company copied? I don't really understand. Again, it's a good idea just to send a message to escrow. Hey, escrow, I know I've been working with you. Can you please just shoot me an email introducing me to everyone else working on my file so I understand who's who? And in busy escrow companies, there will be, one escrow officer that is in charge with certain parts of the escrow. So, for example, there might be someone in the office and they deal mostly with the wires, the money wires. So they're that person.
That's all they do all day long.
Exactly.
It's important to understand the specificity of some of their jobs.
Exactly. And then also when you're copying and when you're sending emails, remember, be very careful about if you copy all.
Because, don't be that person.
Well, not only that, but you want to be careful that you're not giving information that you might not want to necessarily share with everybody involved in the transaction. So sometimes it's better just to send it just to your realtor and have your realtor forward it to who it needs to go to. Although with escrow will be reaching out and asking you to sign documents, just for escrow. But again, usually your realtor's copied on all those documents. But, if you're writing your realtor and saying, this person is driving me nuts, just make sure you don't copy that person on your big email chain.
Also in life, don't do that in life.
Right. And then we have your title rep. for your title insurance, you won't be interacting very much with them, but you might see their name on some of the documents. Really, they work with escrow to make sure that title is clear. We have an episode just on title insurance, so if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. But you might see their name, and that's what they do. They just make sure there's a clear title. And that's pretty much, those are kind of the main players. But again, it does get really confusing, especially if people have the same name.
I mean, also generally in life, you want to avoid that. But the thing, it is so interesting because it's almost like an inverted pyramid, right? Like you start out with your real estate agent, and there's that one, that's the tip of the pyramid. And then you might interact with 20, 30 more people before you have bought a house.
And then you have the inspectors, you have the inspectors, and you have their people. And sometimes the inspectors will have an assistant that send you the inspections. Oh, this is a tip, which has not been put in the buyer tip section, but here's a bonus buyer's tip. When you start a transaction, have a folder separate from the rest of your emails. Label them, drag and drop all the emails so that you can easily reference back. So, for example, keep all your inspections in a separate folder. Mm-hmm. Keep all your escrow emails in a separate folder, all your DocuSigns, so that you can understand and it's easier to go back and look over the documents.
Speaking of the scheduled buyer's tips, after that bonus tip, right now in Los Angeles, this is a real thing. You can get a free Nest thermostat from LADWP, and you can get a free AC tune-up. Did you know that I just recently took advantage of that AC tune-up?
Did you know I just did it 2 days ago?
Are you serious?
Yes.
So they come out. What you do is you go to LADWP, and there's a little section there on the website, and you type in your address, and it'll show you all the providers near you, and they'll come out, and they will tune your AC up for free.
And give you a free Nest thermometer.
Now,
thermostat. Sorry.
Thermostat. Yeah, I already had the Nest thing. I already had one. It's a good purchase. It's a good buy. But they come out. They topped off my coolant. They checked everything out. They gave me a free filter. I had filters. But now, truly, legitimately, my air blows colder and faster than it did before.
The same thing with us. They added some whatever
Freon?
coolant. Yeah. And they added 2 pounds. And I think it's about $65 or $70 a pound. So that saved me $150. They cleaned our compressor. They changed the filter. Just had a look at some of our other things. I just think this is an awesome, it's free. So why not do it?
The city of Los Angeles, LADWP in particular, does a lot to try to, because we have this big old power grid.
Right.
And they really try to do the best that they can to give you all these little freebies to, keep it from locking up.
Yeah.
So take advantage.
Take advantage of it. All right, we're going to talk about TICs, TIC, tenancy in common.
What is that? What is a tenancy in common?
All right, so tenancy in common, these are really popular in San Francisco and New York, and they're just starting to take off in Los Angeles. So tenancy in common is basically you buying a property with other people, and you own your own unit within the property, but you all own it together.
So are you talking about multiple houses on one lot?
Yes. So it can be a fourplex, triplex. It can be, I had a client buy one in Glassell Park, and there were 7 little mini houses on a big lot.
Okay.
And they're really neat. So TICs are, again, they've taken off in other cities. They're just starting to in LA. There's a few main companies that are kind of bringing them to LA, and they're neat. I think they're taking off. We'll see what happens. There is a little bit of inherent risk, but there's some big benefits to a TIC. So the biggest benefit is you're going to be able to get something for a lot less money, especially because it's a new concept in LA. So, for example, this little mini bungalow that my client bought was just a little over $500,000. If it wasn't a TIC, it would easily have been $100,000 more. So these are neat. They're you can get in at a lower price point. Often, because there's multi-units on one thing, you get access to shared spaces.
I would imagine that's the big draw. Is it's probably not as large a house,
right?
But the common areas, I would imagine, are almost resort-like.
Exactly. So it's kind of similar to owning maybe like a townhouse or a condo, but a little bit different. So another benefit is if you like being a part of a community, this is a community. So I know that some of the TICs, they have communal dinners. They meet once a month. They have wine and cheese parties. They're really neat. So it's like a like-minded group of people that want to work together and have a little bit of a community, so they don't feel like they're all alone. They're great properties for singles that just maybe don't want to be fully responsible and alone. Especially if you're moving to LA and you don't know a lot of people, it's a great way to make friends. Okay, so there's very few lenders that lend on these properties. The one that I know of and I've worked with is Sterling Bank from San Francisco. So because these are so popular in San Francisco, there's a law firm, Andy Serkin law firm, and he basically created this contract many, many years ago in the 70s, and he's done a lot of these. So anytime someone has a question on TICs, basically they call Andy Serkin's office in San Francisco. Because they're still so new, there's no CAR forms for the TIC purchase.
Now, when you say CAR form.
So that's the California Association of Realtors. As all of us licensed realtors, we use the same forms throughout California, which is very, very, very great for buyers because no matter what agent you use, there's a standard form. And those forms are there to protect everybody in the transaction. Unfortunately, there is not yet a CAR form for TIC purchases. And I've actually reached out to CAR and asked, are these coming? Are you working on them? I'm going to guess that they're probably going to start working on them, especially if TICs take off. So the purchase agreement that Sterling wants you to use is not a standard CAR form agreement. And if a realtor has not done these transactions before, they're quite complicated. The contract is different. So it requires a lot more due diligence from the agent to really understand what you're signing. Another thing about these TICs is because Sterling is the only bank that I'm aware of, apparently, though, there's one or two more investors that'll do them. The rates are a little bit higher. Right now, they're only offering adjustable rate loans for these purchases, and they take longer. So the average TIC is probably closer to 45 or 60 days. So they don't close as easily. And then they require longer reserves in your bank. So they're a little bit more risky. So they want to see, I believe it's 6 months of expenses in a bank account. So you'll probably have to have a higher down payment or extra reserves. And some of the risks are that you're going to be buying this property with other people. And these are probably not people you know.
Do you think is this something where, it's me, you, and CP all at the same time trying to each, or is it, or are they, if there's 4 properties, you go in and you buy the first one and the 3 aren't bought yet?
Both, actually.
Yeah.
So one of my clients bought at the same time as 2 other people. We actually didn't all close on the same day, but we closed very close. And then in another one, they decided to bundle them. So they sold 3 at one time and then another 2, I believe, and then the rest of them. So they're all done differently. They're very specific. So each property is completely different. And that's another thing that makes these challenging. They're actually a ton of work for a realtor. So if you do decide to purchase a TIC, you really do want to find a realtor that's done one before. And even one, because you can't find a realtor that's done dozens of them because there haven't been that many of them sold. So again, you want to be a little bit cautious, make sure your realtor understands or is willing to do the work to understand what is happening in this transaction. Another thing about TIC, so Sterling is the lender on this, right? What happens if Sterling in a couple of years decides no longer to lend on TICs in LA?
Or Sterling gets bought out by some giant bank and they go, man, we're not into it.
We don't want to do it anymore. And if that's the case, then in the future, you could probably only sell your TIC to an all-cash buyer.
Yeah.
So it's something to keep in mind. Again, they're a little bit more risky. However, if they do take off, we'll probably see more investors and more lenders that will be willing to lend on a TIC. And then it'll become more competitive. The rates will probably go down. Hopefully, they'll start offering a 30-year fixed.
It's sort of the idea of this communal thing, like whether or not people want to buy into a communal living scenario.
Right. And then also, you're a group managing this property. So A lot of the times they'll hire a management company to take care of this. If it's a small building, if there's only 3, some people decide to self-manage it. Again, it's a little bit more similar to like a townhouse situation.
Yeah, I think about it in terms of like a high-end condos.
Exactly. And so what's interesting is you all own it together, but it'll spell out exactly what part of the building or property that you have access to. So, if it's the one with 7 on a lot, you only have access to your house and then maybe the communal area, but you can't go into somebody else's house.
Sure.
And then often it's also spelled out who's responsible for the maintenance. So most people are responsible for the own maintenance of their unit. And then some, as a group, you can choose what kind of rules you want to have. Are you going to allow short-term rentals? Are you going to allow pets? How many pets? So you create your own rules. So that's why it actually is good to buy them at the same time, because then you can meet as buyers. The listing agents don't like this because we can use it to negotiate if everybody's on the same page. Like, hey, if we don't all get this, fixed, we can all walk away together. So again, this is a really, really long, intricate, complicated topic, and we'll probably go more into this on a future episode. I'd like to interview maybe someone from Sterling or one of the major players in LA that does these, because I get a lot of questions on these, and I've done 2 TIC transactions. But, if you see a TIC, that's what it means. Tenancy and common, they're a little bit more complicated, and read up on them. There's lots of information on the internet, so that you can kind of understand what the risks are versus the rewards.
All right, I got a buyer's tip. Listen up. Do not wear high heels when you're out looking at houses. I never do.
Yeah, no, this might not
why is
apply to everybody.
Yeah, what's up?
So don't wear high heels when you're going out looking at houses. Often the backyards are soft, there's stairs, I don't want you to hurt yourself.
Yeah, it's also a place you're not familiar with. It might not be even. You're moving in and out of places. Wear those running shoes.
Wear practical shoes, Tanner.
From your earthquake prep bag.
Practical shoes when looking for a house.
Okay, here we go. 10 best upgrades to your exterior. Oh, I'm so excited to talk about this.
Yay!
Because this is an area of expertise for me.
I thought this would be perfect for us to chat about, Tanner, because you've done so much landscaping.
Listen. So, real quick story. I lent my neighbor 2 doors down my projector because they're going to watch some Stranger Things in the backyard.
Oh, awesome.
And I was talking to my neighbor, blah, blah, blah. And a friend of his walked up to his house there. They were going to watch Stranger Things. He introduced me to his buddy and blah, blah, blah. He said that, Tanner's backyard is like the oasis of the neighborhood. It's like the jewel of the neighborhood. And I was like, thank you so much. Because I have put so much work into the backyard. The number 1 upgrade, obviously, landscaping.
Landscaping. What's amazing about LA is we have access to so many plants for not a lot of money. If you have a little bit of time and you can shop around, you can get amazing deals. And if you do the work yourself, you can save so much money.
Oh, absolutely.
There's I found an amazing nursery close to my house that sells podocarpus hedges.
I don't even know what that is.
They're these beautiful hedges, giant buckets of them for $25 a plant. And a lot of places have them for $60, $65. So I bought a whole bunch, and we just planted a hedge at the bottom of our yard. I'm really excited for it to grow in. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
The number 2 upgrade. Now, this is an expensive one if it's not already there. It's a pool.
Yeah. So if you want to get equity in LA, this is not true of everywhere else in the country. In LA, a pool adds value to your house. If it's a new pool, if it's a good pool. If it's safe, if it looks good.
I imagine even upgrading a pool. Like, for instance, eventually I want to upgrade. That'll be the last thing I do is upgrade the pool.
Right.
But it makes such a huge difference.
People love pools
pool.
in LA. They really do. And yes, there are some people that say, I don't want the maintenance and the cost of a pool. But for the most part, people love a pool. So if you have a property that has a big flat yard, you want to check and make sure if you do want to buy a pool that there's not a sewer line that's running right underneath.
Oh, that's a big one, yeah.
Septic tank. Some of the houses in the hills have septic tanks. So do your research, but a pool will definitely add value to your house.
That garage conversion and guest house, number 3. Man, oh my gosh, one of these days, look, at the end of this month, when this home loan goes through, and for reals, if we want to go out there and just A to Z on guest houses conversions, I'll be ready to do it.
Again, we have an episode about the ADU conversion. But right now, that ordinance in LA, if you have the ability to do it because it could disappear.
Well, and real quick note, because we have 7 more of these to get through. Real quick note, there's a woman who lives around the corner from me. She sits on a Los Angeles. She's on like the Lake Balboa Community Board, and she's also on the Los Angeles like Airbnb board, where it's like, and so her whole thing is just so anybody who's listening, this woman has rented out a back room. Now it's a rec room. It's not a full conversion. But it's separate from their house. In the backyard is an entrance to their house where whoever's renting the rec room in the backyard can get access to a shower and a bathroom. There's not one in the rec room, right? So that's the difference between that being an ADU and a rec room is how it's permitted. But she rents this thing out, and she said the least money that she's ever made a month has been $1,000, and that most months it's between $2,000 and $2,500.
I believe it
for a room without a bathroom or a shower.
Yep.
That's how much money is out
It
there
is crazy. And we also have to be careful because they have just changed the Airbnb regulations in LA.
I got the lowdown on. You know what? Maybe I could talk to her and she could come on and tell us all about it.
That would be great. I think we definitely should do an Airbnb episode because so many people are doing it, and I have clients that are doing it. And let's get that on the books in the future. So
Airbnb billionaire.
We already spoke about this, but hedges. So I've been looking at a lot of properties with a few families lately, and they have these amazing front yards, but they're on a busy street. The easiest thing to do is to put a hedge in so that you can restrict access to the street, gives you a little privacy, can muffle noise.
Oh, it definitely depends on like your location. Like for me, I had a small gross hedge. I took it out, but I'm on a cul-de-sac, so there's not a lot of traffic. But 2 streets down, right on Victory, hedges.
You would want hedges,
they're all over the place.
Now, raised flower beds are something that I just think are so pretty, and they look amazing. They don't cost a lot of money. You can have a handyman do it or do it yourself. That is something that's really pretty that can add value to your house. Just nice raised flower beds or planters for your tomatoes or your legal marijuana plants now, right? Well, it's legal now. Yeah. Right?
Absolutely.
Whatever floats your boat, Tanner.
Absolutely. Whatever floats your toque. Irrigation.
Right. Watering, irrigation. Again, there's so many options in LA for gardeners.
I thought you were talking about French drains for a minute, just in general.
I was just irrigation, just like drip system. But having watering is awesome, and especially if it's on a timer, you can have it turn on in the middle of the night where it's going to be the most effective.
Well, we were talking about LADWP. I actually got a rebate for my smart irrigation controller.
I need to get one. I need my irrigation controller to be smart.
I'll tell you. Okay. Mine's very smart. This next one, number 8, I'm super pumped on. DG, decomposed granite. I love it.
Yeah, ground cover. It stops the weeds from growing up. You can make your backyard look absolutely gorgeous because you have the planters and everything else, and then you put DG down to stop the weeds.
Yeah, it's not difficult to work with. Well, it's not just the DG. You got to put down a layer of plastic underneath it. There's so easy. It's so easy to work with, though. But there are instructions all over the internet. It's cheap and it looks good and it's easy to maintain. Number 9, fruit trees.
Avocados.
Can I grow avocados?
Hell yeah, you can.
That's it. But I feel like it's difficult.
No, not at all. So I have 5 avocado trees.
What?
Listen to this. I've got an amazing avocado tree guy that can get
me. You got an avocado tree guy?
I do. This is what's happened in my life.
Give me your avocado tree guy.
I used to be so cool, and now I'm like, hey, I got a special guy that can get you some avocado trees for a low price.
Like in LA, we got rid of weed dealers and we have avocado dealers.
Yeah, no, that's what we do. Money trees. So, okay, something that I think is super cool that I've discovered is there's 2 types of avocado trees. There's A-type and B-type. And if you plant one A-type, one B-type, they'll cross-pollinate and produce a lot more fruit. So we planted a few of our avocado trees about 5 years ago. This year, they are absolutely fully covered with mini avocados that are growing. I am so excited. Last year, we have a Fuerte tree. and the avocados were huge and they were amazing. So the second you buy a house, plant a bunch of avocado trees.
Well, now I wish I would have done that 2 years ago.
Money all day long. These are like, avocados are like $2 each, $2 to $3. So, and plant one from variety A and one from B.
Okay.
And mix them up. There's all sorts of varieties. Home Depot has them in the spring. Costco sells avocado trees.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. In the spring. Yep.
I want your avocado tree guy. I really do.
If you behave and you're really nice to me, I'll invite you over for some avocados one day.
All right. Number 10, entertaining area. We're talking about tables, lighting, outdoor. Listen, it's LA. Sure, it's 1 billion degrees in the summer, but nothing is better than when it cools off a little bit and you're sitting outside because it's perfect here.
And if you're entertaining a guest, Tanner, which Tanner does frequently.
Like
I'm sure.
I'm reading between the lines. I see what you're saying. Guests, or guests.
Or guests.
I've entertained a few guests.
It's beautiful. So we spend a lot of time outside in LA. It does not cost a lot of money to have a nice little furniture set, just string some fairy lights, set the vibe, and just have a beautiful outdoor area, and that will add to your property.
You can go to Home Depot. I did it with cinder blocks. Yeah, I think you might have seen this.
Yeah, I did
it with cinder blocks and some like boards, and I built concrete benches and bought the cushions from Home Depot, and you get all this stuff for like $200.
Yeah, it doesn't cost a lot of money, especially if you're creative. Get a Pinterest board. But this will add to the value of your house. And these are things you can do yourself. You can have friends help you.
DIY not.
Yeah, why not?
You like that?
I love that. All right. Well, again, another episode in the books.
Bada bing.
Bada bing.
11.
So we have a lot more coming up. I just wanted to remind everyone that we're on all sorts of platforms. So spread the word. Give us some 5-star reviews.
Give us some 5-star reviews.
We'd love
ask
that.
Sara questions. Leave some comments in the comment section. Let us know how we have positively impacted your life and your search for your
and add
house
us on.
or condo.
We have Instagram. We've got Facebook. We've got all the things.
Yeah.
Add us on those.
Yeah, CP is killing the social media game.
Yeah, it's really fun. So anyways, thank you for listening to the LA Real Estate Podcast. I'm your extremely tired but happy host, Sara Skelton. With me is my buddy.
Oh, hey.
Tanner Thomason.
Hey, that's me.
That's him. And so stay tuned for more episodes. If there's a topic that you want us to go over, please send us a message. All of the contact info is on the podcast notes. And we would love it if you guys would share these episodes.
Yeah.
All right. Hope you guys have an awesome day. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
All right. Okay, bye.
Share them with friends, family, anyone.
Just share it.